All right, welcome everyone to today's webcast on the Emergency Temporary Access Service. You'll hear us refer to it throughout the webcast as ETAS, Virtual Office Hours, hosted by HathiTrust Staff. Go ahead and next slide. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We're asking no attendee video or speaking out loud today. We're asked that you keep your camera and your microphone muted. And if you have any questions, please type them into the chat window. We have HathiTrust staff on hand to answer questions during the webcast, and we also will read some of your questions and answer them aloud at the end. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Sandra McIntyre to get us started.
Thanks, Melissa. So today, several of us are going to talk to you in a brief 15 to 20 minute presentation. I'm going to give you an overview of the service, including how we came to provide it and some of the restrictions around it, how to guide users for the emergency service at your institution, some tips about making the most of the service at your institution, and then some words about promoting it and ensuring use of it throughout your community. Then we'll devote the rest of the hour to any of your questions and happy to answer them. We have a number of our HathiTrust staff attending today who can help to answer your questions in the chat window. So please feel free to start those anytime and we'll get to them as we can and then save some for verbal discussion after our brief presentation. So first I'm going to give you a brief description of the service, its fair use basis, and where we are with delivering it to our members. It was about 2 months ago, or maybe a little longer now, in response to the COVID-19 emergency and the unprecedented interruption to library services that HathiTrust began to develop what we see as a careful, lawful approach to providing emergency access to copyrighted materials. Our service is designed to enable educational and research uses of the copyrighted works, and accordingly, we're constraining the access to students, faculty, and staff who are engaged in the active mission of your colleges and universities. The service gives access to titles held at each member library in print, which titles are no longer accessible due to the emergency, where a copy is available digitally in HathiTrust. We've set it up for online reading primarily. No broader distribution of copies is possible. And note that our usual services remain available as well, and we welcome the opportunity to acquaint you and your users more with any of those that you care to know more about at any time. Let's talk about the nature of the service, several aspects of it. Well, first, the service must be due to an emergency. The key criterion here is that users can't access your library's print collection in the normal ways because of an emergency situation beyond your control. This access may be impeded for various reasons and in various ways. For most of you who currently have the service, it's impeded purely by the fact that your library has been closed. But that may change in the future, and we recognize that we need to talk about different scenarios and configurations going forward. So during this time, users can't gain access to your print collections as they normally would. That includes no access to your stacks, no checkouts, mail delivery, or curbside delivery of ETAS related materials. And we do ask that the emergency lasts more than 48 hours. We're trying to use this policy for the future as well. And clearly this one has met that need. Then also this needs to be viewed as a temporary service. Temporary in this case is ending up lasting a long time. And we don't know how much longer it's going to last. But we are treating it as one that will end, and the service itself will end at some point when your print collection services return to normal. We recognize there may not be a clear path for many of you to return to normal, and normal may not be the same ever again, but we'll be evaluating all of this as conditions change. So far, we've activated 175 different institutions. 4 have requested to be deactivated so far. Most of those requests were from the United States, but we have some in Canada, Lebanon, and the United Kingdom also. You can see the whole list of approved libraries on our website there. And if you were attending this webinar because you're not yet activated at your institution and you still would like to be, you can. please take a look at the instructions and links online and send us an application, and we'll work with you to get you online, assuming you qualify. We've had 5 member libraries who couldn't meet our criteria, but otherwise a huge percentage of HathiTrust member libraries have become activated. And several of the requests that we've approved have been from folks who have hurried to join HathiTrust, and we anticipate that there'll be continuing interest in folks in joining for the many benefits that HathiTrust provides, as well as for the emergency service. Now that you're activated, we'd ask that you adhere to the terms of service that have been shared with you. Please avoid lending print books or serials that are accessible to your users as digitized works in HathiTrust. Promote the service and support your users, and we'll give you some tips about how to do that here in this presentation. Work with us to optimize the service at your institution to make it as easy to use for users as possible. And inform us when your circumstances change so that we can talk to you about whether you have normal access to your collections again and whether we need to deactivate the service for you. Planning for the future. We're understanding that things are changing for a lot of you, and you're trying to figure it out much as we're trying to figure it out as we all go forward to deal with the COVID emergency as best we can and to provide the best possible service to all of our users. Mike Furlow, our executive director, issued some guidelines recently on May 22nd, actually. And here are a couple of highlights from that memo. You can also go to it online if you want to read it in its entirety. But Mike basically was acknowledging that the emergency for higher education and libraries won't actually end at some point, say this summer or fall, but will continue to evolve and continue to change for all of us. Many of you will need to continue to rely on this service, and we want to work with you. But be assured we have no established date for cutoff right now. We'll continue it as long as the need is there and there's no normal access to your print collections. And again, he asks that you stay in touch with us as plans develop at your campuses so that we can build out and understand the scenarios that you're working with, and we can build out the service as best we can. So a couple of things have become clearer to us over the last few weeks, and I want to just mention a little bit about factors that we're keeping in mind as we talk about continuing your service. We'll be assessing these on a case-by-case basis as we get in touch with you and as you get in touch with us about changes to what you're able to provide. But the first of these is that we need to continue to ask you not to do print lending of items that are available through the emergency service. The whole basis for the ETAS service is one copy, one user. So if you are also lending that print copy, we are violating the terms of service by which we're making the online copy available. This is for the in-copyright works that are in your holdings and available on HathiTrust. Doesn't apply to non-ETAS available items. You can print lend those all you need to or want to or able to. So we'll be asking you as your situation changes to keep confirming to us that you will not lend to anyone, not just your students, faculty, and staff, but affiliate users as well. You won't lend to anyone physical items that are available through the emergency service. The other major factor, and one that's more complex for us to figure out, is the limitations on access to your collection stacks. What we need to know is what you're having to do to protect the health and safety of your students, faculty, and staff, and how that differs from what you normally would do. So as different bodies of students return to campus, what are they and how is that different from what you normally, what's the normal access that they would have and they don't, some of them don't have now? Which of your branches are open? How many users at a time are you allowing in? When your stacks are, if your stacks are open, how many users at a time there? In other words, how different is the access that you're continuing to have to provide in order to protect the health and safety of your users from what you normally would do? So we hope that you'll stay in touch with us, continue to send your questions and information to us at feedback@issues.hathitrust.org, and we'll keep in touch as our guidelines develop in response to specific scenarios. Before I pass this on to our next staff member, I just want to also give a big thanks to our content contributors. You know, the folks who've worked over the last 10 or 12 years to contribute content to HathiTrust are the whole reason we're able to offer this service now. Our collaboratively developed collection exists because of all of those members who've contributed. And we really appreciate the work that they've done. It's a tremendous amount of work that's involved in creating something like the HathiTrust Corpus. You can be sure we will continue to work to find ways to expand access to all of this scholarship, and for sharing your content and metadata and making our collaborative work possible. We thank you. Now I'll pass it off to Angelina Zaitsev to talk about how to guide users at your institution.
Thanks, Sandra. I'm Angelina. I'm the User Services Librarian at HathiTrust, and in my role, I lead the HathiTrust User Support Team, which is a collaborative team composed of staff and librarians from your institutions. Over the past couple of months, we've been monitoring the tickets that we've received and paying attention to the kinds of inquiries we've been getting through user support. So today I'll be talking through some of the tickets that we get and the most frequent questions we get asked in order to help you better serve your own patrons. Next slide, please. You can find much of the same information that I'll be talking about today on our website. The 2 web pages that are linked here were written with our end users in mind. So please feel free to share these pages with your own users or repurpose the content to create communications materials for your campuses. Next slide. One common point of confusion occurs around who has access to ETAS. Our usual access services include broader categories of users such as alumni and retirees. However, for ETAS, we had to restrict which categories of users are eligible to access these books. We are providing this service only to current students, faculty, and staff. This service is not available to other courtesy groups that your libraries typically serve, such as alumni, retirees, or other affiliates. Please keep in mind that we don't control who is categorized as a current student, staff, or faculty. That is set by the IT unit on your campus that manages accounts for your university. And then the account metadata is transmitted to us through Shibboleth, and we accept whatever metadata is coming to us through that mechanism. Next slide. We've been receiving a lot of questions from users and librarians about which books are included in ETAS. We can only provide your users with access to HathiTrust books that are also held in your libraries. The matching that we do is based on print holdings data that we receive from you, and Melissa will talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Our matching is based solely on OCLC numbers. We do not use any other metadata fields to compare your records to our records. As a result, as those of you who work with catalog records know, this is an imperfect science, and we're not able to provide access to HathiTrust books in a number of situations. If your record doesn't have an OCLC number, if our record doesn't have an OCLC number, or if the OCLC number in your record doesn't match an OCLC number in our systems, then all of these scenarios can prevent a user from accessing a copyrighted HathiTrust book. We also cannot do manual corrections to our underlying data or turn on access to one book at a time. Next slide. In contrast to our usual member benefits, which allow logged in users to download full PDFs of public domain works, there are more restrictions on temporary access books. These restrictions are in place because these books are copyrighted. So please remind your patrons that they should observe copyright guidelines when using ETAS books. Users can read and view the book online in the HathiTrust interface. They cannot download the pages as a PDF. Some of your users who are blind or have print disabilities may find it particularly difficult to use ETAS books with this restriction in place, and we do want to remind you of the accessible text request service that we offer. Through this service, a designated staff member on your campus can register to download copyrighted books in order to transform them into a more accessible format and then share them with eligible users who have print disabilities. So if you're not sure if your campus has signed up for this service, please contact us and we can work with you to make sure it's working as expected. Next slide. There are a couple of other factors that impact how users can access these books. For example, the number of copies that are available for simultaneous access is based on how many copies you reported that you hold on your shelves. If your library holds 3 copies of a book, then 3 users from your campus can access the HathiTrust copy at the same time. Users can also check out a book for 60 minutes. At the end of that 60 minutes, if they're still actively reading the book, their access will automatically renew. However, if there is a lull in their activity at the end of that 60 minutes, then another user can check out the book, and the first user can come back and recheck out the book whenever they get back to working with this book. This works pretty seamlessly for the most part and prevents any one user from hogging a book for weeks on end. If you hear reports from users, however, that they're being logged out and losing access to the book before their 60 minutes ends, please let us know, as this may be caused by a persistent authentication bug that we've been working on for a long time. I'm happy to take any questions about the material I just covered, but for now I'll hand it over to Melissa for the next section.
All right, thank you, Angelina. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about how to make the most of the Emergency Temporary Access Service at your institution. So next slide. So we have a lot of member support documentation on our website. So if you want, there is a section on information for member libraries where you can find communications tools, how to add records to your catalog, how to interpret overlap reports, and we just added a page on on your usage reports, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. Next slide. So access to materials is limited to items that you have in your print holdings, which is based on the most recent holdings that you provided to us. At this time, we cannot make incremental updates, but you can update all of your print holdings at any time following our instructions on the link in the slide here. And just to let you know, because I forgot to mention before, we are going to share these slides with you after the presentation. Print holdings are processed once a month, and it typically takes about 2 weeks from the start of each month for the full update to occur and items to be accessible. So basically, if we receive your print holdings by the 24th of the month, we will validate them in time for loading with that next month's build, which always starts on the 1st of the month. And if we find any issues, we'll do our best to work with you to resolve the problem in time for the build. If you submit files after the 24th of the month, they won't be able to be processed until the following month's build. All right, next slide. So overlap reports. At the time of ETAS activation, the service contact received an overlap report showing which additional items from your physical holdings are available to your users in HathiTrust. This was also posted in your HathiTrust member box account. And also on our website, there is a document with more information on how to interpret those reports. And if you're not sure who, if you think that you should have links to the member box account and you don't, please email feedback and let us know. And we will verify that you have access if you're a contact. Next slide. So how to integrate Discovery into your local catalog. The simplest and most basic thing you can do to alert your users is to visit HathiTrust.org and log in. We've also created a new page that has instructions for 3 different methods to integrate ETAS records into your catalog. And so you can go to that link and see that. And finally, today here we just recently began providing usage reports to our members that are using the service. So we provide information on unique checkouts, items, renewals, and titles from date of service to present. We update these usage reports weekly, and they will be updated to the box folder, again, in your member folder. So if you need, again, need a link to that box folder, and you don't have that, let us know. All right, and I am going to turn it over to Jessica now to talk about how to promote ETAS in your community.
Great,
Thank you, Melissa. So integration does make a huge difference, as Melissa was just saying. But if your community hasn't heard that the temporary access option exists, then they may not recognize the resources to help them continue their research and learning. So today I'm going to point to some resources that you can use to promote the service on your campus and also help you connect with other member libraries who are, given us a lot of great ideas about how to promote it. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give you also a brief snapshot of ETAS usage as we've seen it today. So you've been able to take a look at ETAS usage on your own campus using the reports that Melissa was referencing. And we've also been able to look at these numbers in aggregate. And it's been really, really pretty amazing to see the usage across the whole membership. So on average, every day, about 2,554 patrons are checking out 2.2 items each for a total of 3,987 unique items. That's a lot. It's maybe a little overstretched if you keep in mind that the institution who has 22,531 unique users is considered into those averages. Same thing with the unique items. The institution who is reporting on overall 17,829 unique items, it does skew these averages a bit. I can tell you that most members in their reports are coming up with a more like triple-digit numbers versus quadruple numbers. So outside of the top 25 institutions, you're going to see unique users anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000, or for unique items, 2,000 to 2,000. So you'll find yourself somewhere in there. But on average, we're seeing really steady use of the service across the membership. So next slide, please. So if the numbers that you are seeing are not quite what you were expecting, then you may need to do a little more promotion. We have seen in our analysis that libraries who are promoting the ETAS service do have increased usage. So that may seem a bit obvious, but if you think about it, if your members don't know that this service exists to them, that they can access this for their teaching, learning, and research, then they don't see the full value of your library. So if you are promoting the service, they're able to find what they're looking for to keep doing what they need to do on your campus, then they see the value. And certainly right now, seeing the value of the library on your campus is going to be pretty important, especially to your leaders. So I just popped in a quote here from Virginia Steele at UCLA, just to remind you that really promoting the service and showing the value of your library to your campus right now is important, and you're definitely going to make an impact. Next slide, please. So we've provided some tools to get you started. This was now early on, a couple months back, but if you're looking to have a boost in your usage, if you're thinking about doing some additional planning for fall because you know that you're going to be using ETAS for a while, I invite you to come back, take a look at the link here on the page, and grab one of these items that are here for you to steal, copy. We want you to promote the service, so hopefully you can find something there that works for you. I will say that the news post or item on a homepage promoting ETAS has definitely been the promotional item that we have seen makes the greatest impact in terms of upping those usage numbers. So basically 7 of our 10 top institutions in terms of ETAS usage do have more of a persistent item on their homepage. And so, individuals who may be using the homepage as their main entry point to the library day in, day out, or they're looking for something really specific, they're definitely running into items there. So if that's something you haven't done yet, I encourage you to do so. And there are examples of that on this webpage. Next slide, please. So on the member materials webpage, you'll find samples from all across the membership of things that they have done to promote ETAS. So there are videos, training videos, there are social media posts, there are a few LibGuides, there are catalog samples. There's a lot there that you can look at and find inspiration from, hopefully. There's still also a collaborative Google Doc floating around out there. There's a link right here, and we encourage you to add anything to it that you have done recently. I think I've seen items continue to trickle in. So again, if you're looking for inspiration for additional campaigns around ETAS, I invite you to go to either one of those pages. I will say that as we move into summer and move into fall planning, we want to be developing materials with your institutions in mind. So as we move into this next season and we hear more about different scenarios for teaching and learning on your campuses, we will do our best to create materials that will help support you in getting the word out for those different communities. Next slide. So in case you haven't heard about the impact that the Emergency Temporary Access Service is having on teaching, learning, and research on your campuses, we have been getting feedback from across the membership, from social media, emails, anecdotally. We're really hearing some really positive stories about how ETAS has really helped your communities continue to do the mission work. So if you haven't heard it, I just grabbed a few quotes here, everything from reference desk to PhD candidates continuing their research, undergraduates wrapping up the semester. We've had lecturers, we've had faculty members talk about being able to continue teaching. So it really is making an impact. The fact that all of our members have been able to continue serving your campus communities is really fantastic. And so we've been hearing just a bit of it and the small role that we are playing and wanted to share it back with you. Next slide. I think we are back on for all of us to join and answer your questions. Thank you.
All right, so again, please type any questions that you have in the chat, and I will read those out loud to the group and answer them as they come. I have a few questions to kind of get us ready, help you think of some more, so I'll get started. What should we do if we find we do not have access to a book that we own in print? How can we correct this? I can go ahead and answer that, saying again that access to materials is limited to the items that you have in your print holdings, which is based on HathiTrust's most recent print holdings from you. So an item that has been matched or was missing from your print holdings will not be accessible. In order to correct this, please start with the team at your library who handles the print holdings process to verify that this item was included in your most recent print holdings submission. If it was not included, you could submit new print holdings report to get this updated, but remember that we are not able to accept incremental updates, so an entire new print holdings report will be required. All right. So next question, what is HathiTrust doing to consider different reopening policies or procedures libraries might have? For instance, what happens if some of our students are back but not all? I'm going to ask Sandra to address this one.
We're still working on what scenarios we'll be able to continue the lawful access through ETAS under, but certainly if access for all of your user population is not possible because of health and safety measures that you're having to take at your institution or library, we will take that strongly into consideration. And in terms of defining your work as not being normal. So please do share your scenarios with us using the feedback address if you have any questions, and we can respond to those scenarios.
All right, here's one for Angelina. Could you describe the check-in process? How does someone know when they can get a book and it is not checked out?
Sure. There is a banner message that appears at the bottom of every temporary access book that a user has checked out or is about to check out. And when the user is currently reading that book, the banner message says something like, this work is checked out to you until some kind of timestamp, and may automatically renew. Access to this work is provided through the Emergency Temporary Access Service. And then the button that's in that banner message invites them to return early. So they can just click that button whenever they're ready to check the book back in, and then it becomes available for any other user to read. So we would encourage you to encourage your users to return those books when they're done with them.
Okay, could you talk more about checking out serials and multi-part monographs? Since the match is an OCLC number, does this mean ETAS grants access to the full holdings in HathiTrust of a particular serial, regardless of the library holdings? Or when one user checks out a single volume, does that mean other users are locked out of the entire journal run?
I can take that one. Basically, if you hold at least one volume of the serial, your users can check out any volume in the serial run. Each of the volumes is available for checkout independently of the others, so you're not locking out other users from checking out other volumes in the serial. In terms of multi-part monographs, the user has access only to the volumes that you hold, so it's more like the single part monographs in that sense. The checkouts for each volume are still independent of the other volumes.
Are you exploring enabling ILL with ETAS books? Could my users borrow a book from another ETAS library?
I can take that one too. We're not able to enable ILL with ETAS books. And so there is no mechanism for you to download a book and to offer it to a user at another institution through ILL. We recognize this would be very handy and we wish we could, but it would violate the basis of the ETAS service and our legal standing for providing the access we do provide. So we're unable to do that.
Here's another one for Angelina. If our users go back home to a different country, will they still be able to access ETAS books?
Yes, the ETAS access overrides any country restrictions that we may have in place. There are certain books in our collection that are available based on the user's location, whether they're in the United States or not. So they may see the description labels change from full view to temporary access or limited view. So there may be a little bit of confusion that occurs around there, but they'll be able to take advantage of ETAS regardless what part of the world they're in.
All right. Should our users use a proxy server like EasyProxy when using HathiTrust?
No, we generally discourage the use of EasyProxy and other proxy servers. I'm going to paste a link into the chat to our Shibboleth page, and at the bottom of that page there's a note on proxy servers which talks about some of the problems that we've observed with users who are using a proxy server. Partially the biggest problem is that we have rate limiting or throttling in place, so all users who are accessing HathiTrust via proxy server are treated as if they are one user. So if you have 20 users on a proxy server using HathiTrust, they may experience slowdown.
All right. And remember, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat window. But I have a few more. Can we still use the accessible text request service to provide access for books for print disabled users? I can answer that one. Angelina talked about that in her section, that yes, please, if you don't have somebody from your institution who is registered with special access to provide materials for users with print disabilities, please email us at feedback and we can work with you to get somebody set up for that service. Is the HathiTrust Research Center still available? Sandra, do you want to talk about the Research Center at all?
It definitely is still available, still working actively, hosted at the Indiana University and the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. We have a very strong HTRC set of services for text and data mining. So if you have scholars and researchers who'd like to work with text and data mining, please do check out the HTRC website, find out more about those services, and we'd love for you to send researchers that way.
Okay.
I just put an impromptu poll for those still lingering on the call here. I see there's a handful. If you are the individual who received your ETAS usage reports, I'm just curious how valuable they've been to you. So if you have a quick note there, I gave you an easy 1, 2, 3, very, just okay, or not valuable. If you have a second, want to drop that in there. A little informal feedback here. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessica. I only have one more question in my prepared bank, and then we'll just, so go ahead while you're answering Jessica's poll there. I was just going to, let you all know that we are still accepting new members. We have had, definitely as a result of the service, has been a lot of interest in new membership. So please tell anybody that you know from another institution that's not a member if they're interested in joining. I'm going to cut and paste. This is the web page that you want to go to, or how to join page that will explain the requirements for joining. And there's also a link to an intake form that they can fill out to get that process started. All right, and those are all of the prepared questions that I have. Again, we would be happy to take more questions, or please do take a second to answer Jessica's poll there. That data is really valuable to us to know. I'm seeing a lot of ones, Jessica.
And I do invite you to submit specific questions that you have about the ETAS reports. You can submit those to feedback@issues.hathitrust.org, and I can help answer those for you too.
All right, since this is all we have for today, I'm not seeing any more questions. I am going to stop the recording, but I'm not going to turn off the webcast. So if you want to stay online, if you have any more questions, or if you haven't responded to the poll yet, we're not going anywhere for the next few minutes.